All right, so welcome everybody to another episode of the virtual travel party. And I'm going to welcome Dilenny Usman, who's going to talk to us about living in the Middle East. So let's get it started.
Ooh. I don't even know where to start. You know that? I was thinking about like where do I even start talking about it because actually I'm really excited to be here talking because I don't ever get to talk about my experiences and it's something that kind of like I carry within and it's nice to finally be able to share it.
Maybe tell us like when you got there, what led you to living in the Middle East, and your experience. What were you doing there?
All right, so I ended up going to teach in the Middle East. I was a teacher. On how I got there, I guess I would have to start with my journey of solo traveling because that's what gave me the courage to even take such a decision. And, I was at a point in my life where to me it didn't matter if I was around or not, like if I was alive or not. So I went through like this, I started going through this soul searching process. And that allowed me to take my first solo trip. I went to Costa Rica. And I used to like always feel lonely and stuff. And I realized that when I was traveling by myself, I didn't feel lonely. And then I started like, it gave me the perspective that there's a big difference between being lonely and being alone. And that I actually enjoyed being alone. So I was like, you know what? I want to travel solo more. So for 2 years before I ended up in Kuwait, I was traveling around the world. I started doing the 7 wonders. And because I knew nothing of geography, I'm like, okay, now I want to travel, but I don't even know where I want to go because I don't know anything. And I really enjoyed it. And I saw like, for example, the first time I went to Thailand, I met English people who were like being the servers at the bars, at the beach bars. And I'm like, dude, why do you live here? Like, how does this happen? And they were like, well, I just came and I was traveling and I just never went back home. And then that's what planted the seed of like, wow, like you can really just create a lifestyle and live happy being abroad. And so I continued traveling until I started teaching, and I was 2 years in the classroom, and I was like, oh my God, I cannot deal with the system. I don't want to be in the classroom or whatever. I was in South America at the time. And I just remember I was in Brazil. I was doing the wonders still. So I was in Brazil looking at the Jesucristo de Redentor, right? And then I wanted to go to Peru, but when I planned the trip, to me, it wasn't feasible or possible to also go to Peru and go to Machu Picchu. But what ended up happening was that I went to Machu Picchu, like just spare of the moment kind of thing. And I said to myself, I remember like it was yesterday. I said to myself, you know what, like I really need to learn to trust my instinct and what I think is possible because I thought I couldn't be here, and here I am, like in this majestic place. And then se me ocurrió, like, I'm going to quit teaching because I'm going to trust my instinct. And the only way I'm going to continue teaching is if I get to do it abroad because I was so into traveling at the time. So I came home. This was like the end of July 2015. I come home and I'm talking to a friend who happened to have worked in Kuwait. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I decided to quit teaching. So he's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm not going to be miserable in the workplace. And I decided that the only way I'm going to do this, I'm going to continue, if it's meant to be, is by doing it overseas. And he's like, all right. I kid you not, like 3 days later, he hits me up and he's like, hey, I met a teacher in Kuwait who just posted that they need a teacher really bad in her department. And I think you totally have the qualifications. Why don't you hit her up and see what's up?
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I hit her up. Knowing nothing about the Middle East, I knew absolutely nothing. And I hit her up, I'm like, is it safe? Because the whole 9/11 perspective out here and all of that. And she was like, I love it. Like, do your own research, but let me tell you, like, it's an easy job. Like, I'm like, I bet. So I sent her my resume. 2 days later, I was on an interview with the principal.
Wow.
Hired me on the spot, and I was in Kuwait 2 weeks later.
No way, that was quick.
So that, yeah, it was just like, and it's kind of cool because I think if I would have had the time to think about it, I probably wouldn't have made. She actually wanted me to get there within a week, and I was like, dude, give me time. Like, I need to process. I need to like, this is just, I'm just going, you know. And it was probably the best decision I've made in my life so far. And that's how I ended up there. And then I was working at an American school. And I was there for 3 years, and it's just amazing. It's a whole other world out there, and it's I mean, like, there's so many things I can just share, but I think the most important is like thing is basically realizing how big and vast the world is and how interconnected we are, and we don't even realize it because we just tend to live in this bubble. And then when you leave outside of this bubble, it just changes everything, starting from the inside. So, you know, it has been mostly an internal journey, a lot of perspective gaining and changing my world views and my self views. And yeah, it's been amazing. And I did 4 years abroad after I went to, where did I go? After I was in Kuwait for 3 years, I did another year in Colombia. And yeah, that's my time there.
So, where did you live exactly in Kuwait?
Well, Kuwait is like, I call it the fart in the world because it's so tiny. Like, you can literally drive across Kuwait in 2 hours.
Wow.
So, you know, like, it has like little cities, right? But it's really all one thing. The city is just to give you perspective as to how far you gotta drive. But I lived in Hawali, in the city of Hawali. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that where the expats live, or?
The expats are all over. So and it's funny because this is something I also learned in Kuwait. In just about any field or profession, you can find a way to live abroad, right? I went as a teacher, and it's very common for teachers, but there were like engineers from South America. There were personal trainers. Personal training is a big expat job. What else? Dancing is a big expat job. Like, the most random professions, there are ways to figure out how you can do it abroad and live the lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people all over the world. Mostly there were a lot of Spanish people. There were some South Americans, lots of Americans, especially in the school system. And then you have the military people that are like their own entity of living out there.
Did you find fellow Dominicans?
I didn't meet a Dominican there. I heard about a Dominican that was there. I actually hang out with mostly, I don't know what's up with the Middle East, but Black people love the Middle East. Like, a lot of African Americans. Like, that's in the expat world. It's mostly of Americans. It's mostly African Americans out there. So that was my, group and stuff. To me, I grew up with them pretty much. So I'm like, oh, you're my peoples. But what's interesting is it was like, to me, it was like I was part of their group, but to them, they had to accept me inside because they didn't consider me one of them. So it was like, I went through an identity crisis and all of that, girl, because it was like, I'm like, wait, but to me, I'm like one of you. We grow up the same way. We lack the same resources. We have the same struggles. But to them, not having the history of the slavery makes you not one of them, even though you're facing the same societal challenges in America. So that's something I had to actually work through and process and accept.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Dominicans, there's not many Latinos in the expat world at all. Like, when I went to Colombia, right? I went in with a group of 40 new teachers, and I was the only Latina in the group. There were no African Americans. Um, and it's funny because I had a friend he's very into, you know, policy and how society works and oppression and whatnot. And he's like really wealthy guy from Canada, Caucasian. And then he supported me a lot because that's where I struggled the most in Colombia. And he was telling me, he was like, you know, when you're thinking about society, you always think black and white, but you never think about who or what is in between. And he was like, I've never, when I think about, you know, fairness and oppression and those topics, I never thought about people in your position because you're so beautiful taking this route. That is just something that people don't think about.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
And how was a day, a normal day in your life in Kuwait? Like, what did you do?
It depends. So Kuwait is a dry country, meaning there's no bars, there's no alcohol, whatever. So people selling henia, and they buy yeast and they create their own alcohol. It was like the worst hangovers in life. I felt like I was in car. I was like, I'm not gonna drink this thing ever again. But it was like, I'm not gonna. um, so a typical day would consist of going to work, like first time in my life, waking up like 4:30 in the morning. Sometimes I had workout routine, sometimes I didn't, but it was really hard because it's just so hot. Um, go to work. So it's funny because it's not hot all year long like people think. It actually gets cold. So I would wear a coat for a few months, which actually was very surprising to a lot of people. So then if it's hot, if it's really hot, you literally like just break a sweat as soon as you step out, but then everything else is like filled with AC. It's so easy to get sick because you're constantly like running between the heat and the extreme cold. Like there was never any in between unless I was home. Then I would come home. Um, Depending on my mood, I would nap. It was so luxurious living. Like I had not a worry in the world. I didn't care about bills because they pay for housing. I didn't care, like, it was just lovely. So I would get home. Sometimes I would socialize, be around. I would read a lot. What else? I would work out again. Um, and then the weekends, we would do the underground parties. So people would, and this was like, it was very common. So usually the expats or people who have been there for a long time, obviously people who have more money, they would take a room and they will pad it up. They will make it soundproof. And then those rooms, it could be an apartment, it could be a basement, it could be in they wanted to. And they would like make it a club, like literally you would step in and it would look like a lounge. And that was like my weekend life. And I will also travel a lot to Dubai. Dubai would be kind of like, I call it the backyard of Kuwait, because on any, you could just be like, oh, I'm just gonna go to Dubai for the weekend, and that's it, and then that's what you do to entertain yourself. But Kuwait has like, they eat so much. Their malls are so extravagant. I mean, you've been to Dubai, right? So imagine that, just like the Kuwaiti level of it. It doesn't have many attractions, but they do have activities, random activities. Like I went to a this random one. I went to, you know, the ice, the places made out of ice that you go and everything's made out of ice.
Igloo, like an igloo kind of thing.
Yeah, and there was like one that was here, and I was like, oh, that's cool or whatever. Like, and they had one in Kuwait, and I'm like, who would have thought they could have something made out of ice here when people are melting outside? You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah. They had, you know, I always was just doing random activities, just socializing. Tinder, that's when I began to use Tinder. People actually, expats in general, use Tinder more to meet people than to date. So it
Mm.
was just a good way to just be in contact and kind of like create connections and create a social life. And I did a lot of random activities with them: kart riding, um, the escape room. They have it all. People
Escape
like
room? What's that?
escape room. You don't know the escape room?
No.
Escape room is
Yes, I know. Come on, sister. You
yeah.
have explored the world. What's wrong with you?
Escape room? I don't know what that is.
No, they put you like in a room, right? And then
Oh,
you
escape the
find a
room. Oh,
clue.
okay. Sorry. I thought it was something else. Sorry.
Ice. The other day they had ice skating. I wasn't there for that, but like there's a lot of random stuff that you would not think you would find in the Middle East.
Mhm.
And restaurant galore. My God, the food. Any type of food from anywhere in the
What
world.
is the food like, and what was your favorite dish?
I My God, they just have so much food. My favorite dish, I became like a big lover of hummus, which I had already like been exposed to here, but it's nothing like hummus from the Middle East. Um, with I forgot the name right now of my favorite uh dish. It's gonna. I'll get back to you on that. But what I liked about it, it's how diverse it was. You could have Lebanese food today, then another restaurant is like Kuwaiti food, another restaurant is like um, Turkish, steak. All the American chains are there. That's what people mostly do. It's like their thing to do, to just eat. So it's pretty insane. And they eat so much. Oh my God! Like we as and in the teaching in the classroom, we would do a lot of events. So a lot of events would require like we would ask the parents to bring food, and we would have to tell them like how to portion it because they are so extravagant that they would like we would eat like a fraction of everything that they would bring because se pasan, they are like the most generous people ever in terms of giving.
Wow.
Actually, let me talk to you about that. That was one of my biggest culture shocks. Was the way that they socialize because you see how, let's say it's my birthday, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna do a birthday dinner, and everybody comes, everybody shares their portion, and then probably everyone would chip in for the birthday person normally. Like that's how we usually work.
Uh-huh.
They don't do that. They get offended. If they invite you somewhere, they pay. So if
Oh.
they invite you to my party, it's because I'm treating you. If I invite you to my wedding, I'm not expecting a gift. I'm giving you a gift. If I work with you and my child graduated, even though you don't know my child, I'm gonna come to my job with a whole platter for people to celebrate. And like every celebration to them is about giving, like so
That's really nice.
yeah, it was
Okay.
really nice. Yeah. So that was one of my biggest like, whoa, that's different. And some of them would say that actual creators are like, that's because Americans are so greedy, like they just want, give me, and they're like the complete opposite. They like, you see here, they were like, just take your from your pocket or just like mostly anywhere. And over there, they return your shit. Like I lost my cell phone in a dressing room twice, and both times I just went to the manager. They gave me my cell phone back. They had returned it. I left my key in a taxi, my keys with nothing. And it had those little cards that you put on the key for the supermarket. They
Mm-hmm.
went to the supermarket, entregaron la llave, and the manager from the supermarket called me.
No way.
Yo, I'm telling you, like the level of just the respect and just like human like I don't even know how to say, like the courtesy, the common sense, the compassion is so extreme out there. And they're not interested in just in the material things like we are. I mean, they are bougie, don't get me wrong, but they get it themselves, and like it's how they take care of themselves. But they, instead of like wanting for them, they like to pour it out.
Wow. How
Yeah.
was your interaction with the women there and with the men? Are there any rules of engagement?
I'm gonna tell you the first time I engaged. So as a teacher, I had a I'm sorry because it's so funny still. I had an assistant. She's Jordanian, and you know, very into the culture. She was actually the girl that I was talking about the other day. How, you know, or every the way she is like her choice, not something that she feels is imposed on her.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so she takes me as I'm settling in. She takes me to IKEA to, you know, settle in and just buy some stuff. And I found I was just so grateful. So they drop me off in my house, and I give her a hug or whatever. And then I'm like this to the husband, right? And I just hear her in the background, no, no, like. Y como quiera le di la hora. So I still hugged him. And she's like, no, we don't do that here. I was like, God, like. So no physical interaction with men for the most part. Like it's just not even maybe shaking hands depending on how open-minded they are. But in order for that to happen, they would have to initiate the action. Otherwise, it's just like hello, goodbye, whatever. The women are completely different. You know, they're very open, and what's cool is, you know, how they cover up and whatnot. When they're all in a women's space, they actually take their stuff off. And I think that was one of my favorite parts, because some of them you don't even recognize without the hijabs.
Yeah.
You don't recognize them. Like
when I went to Dubai, I went to the salon and I went to do my nails, and it was all covered. But when you went in, everybody had their things off. How was your experience going to those spaces?
Actually, it's funny because before I left, I went on this like shopping. Is it too loud? Because there's a lot of noise outside.
No, it's good.
Okay. When before I left, I went shopping and I bought like all these like monja type of wear. You know, I'm like, I don't know what's the expectation where I'm going, and it's nothing like that. It's you know, I think you will find women wearing tank tops and shorts. It's not common, but some people just don't care. I personally, I respected the culture, so I gave myself boundaries. So like I would not wear anything above my knees. If I wore a shirt, I would probably like a tank top. It would be up to there. Like I didn't do the tiny straps or anything like that. But that's just personal preference. It's not like you have to dress like this, like most people think. Or you know, a lot of people used to ask me if I had to wear a hijab. And that kind of stuff, and that's not how it is at all. And that's true mostly everywhere in the Middle East, except for like Saudi, where it's more strict. And they're actually not as strict anymore with their new king, but it's very open. And just like that, you see a lot of women from there that they don't cover, and they dress regular, and they're so fly. They can dress their behinds off. I'm just like, I want your style. I want your clothes. Yeah. But yeah, it wasn't, you know, that was what I expected to be a culture shock, and that was not, because I just felt normal. You know? That actually, what was interesting was seeing them in bathing suits.
Really?
You know, they cover everything. They go in with their black everything. Like they still don't show anything. Those who cover.
Did you go with regular bathing suits when you went to the beach or the pool?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But no one like necessarily told you anything because you were dressed that way.
Well, like for example, the gyms. There was a big gym, like it was like a club or whatever. It's mostly American, so places that that were had a lot of restrictions were not places that were really open to the public because there was like their space, right? But a place mostly they weren't really the clean beaches were like in the what are they called? Um, they're beach houses. I know there's a name for it. Chalets. So most beaches, nice beaches to get in, were by the chalets, and then the chalets people don't care. Like it's like a beach house where you go to get wild. So going to the beach there was no problem. The pools that were there were in the neighborhoods were mostly, you know, they had access for Americans, so you can just be normal. It wasn't, I didn't feel like I had to change absolutely anything about the way I carried myself in public and what other than like choosing not to wear shorts, but I don't regularly wear shorts. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
And the school that you worked for, were they welcoming?
Especially the Arab. So it was funny because we had the department that I worked in. It was half Americans and half Arab, and the Americans mostly stayed by themselves. We like had our little friend here, friend there, little circles or whatever. But we wouldn't go to the break room and sit there. The Arab women, eso sí tienen que chimean como ella sola. Like they would just sit there y comerse a quien sea, whatever. So I'll give you an example of something. My assistant, she had a son. He was already 5. So they already like have this vision of like when I have kids, like I'm gonna have them together or whatever. So my assistant had been trying to get pregnant, but she wasn't able to, and they just kept going at her. Why aren't you having kids? Like, like really metiéndose en la vida de ella, and she would really come vent to me like it's really annoying. I wish they were more like Americans in that sense, because they, if you are not following the tradition, it's always kind of like that push of, why aren't you things like the way it's supposed to be? Yeah. But I really enjoyed working there. The people, the local staff was amazing. And I have more friends over there than I do here now, that I talk to on a regular basis. And they know more about what's going on in my life than people that are surrounded by. And, they're generally caring. And I even used to say at one point that if I was into religion, I probably would have converted. Because I really, those who practice the right way are really pure in the practice. They really have good intentions, and their belief system has lots of values, and the way that they como se entregan, a esos valores is very, very unique. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
What part of the religion was appealing to you?
I think it was just their genuine desire to do the right thing, to have compassion and to help and to give and just to feel that they're doing the right thing, to have that connection to their Allah, right? And it's not like, for example, I grew up Catholic. The way I grew up, we just go to church on special occasions, Easter, maybe Christmas, if that, Palm Sunday. But outside of that, we don't really invest ourselves into the practice, at least the way I grew up, the way that they do. And that's why I was like, from my experience and what I had experience with religion, that was one that was most aligned with the values of the religion.
Mm,
and what it's, you know, what it stands for, what they're meant to do.
yeah. Wow.
Mhm.
Did you guys have any questions for her
Oh,
about her
please, let's
life?
go away. I have a lot. Let me see what else I can share.
How long
Um,
did you live there for? You might have said it at the beginning, but I missed it.
Mm-hmm.
I lived there for 3 years. So I lived there from
Okay.
2016 to 2018. And actually, I didn't even want to leave. The reason why I loved it there, and I would actually go back and live there with in a heartbeat. The reason why I decided to leave is because their society is so wealthy that I couldn't apply the work I'm passionate about, which is like around career and education. And to them, you know, education is more about going to the most prestigious school than it is about developing a career where the person's going to be at, because they have the money. So like their level of ambition and their desire of thinking outside the box is not really as great as a community, let's say like New York City, when you have a lot more people who come from underprivileged backgrounds and they want to grow out of it. So that's why I decided to leave. And I also decided to leave because I was allergic. I was allergic to Kuwait. I don't know why. I've never had allergies in my life. I think they used to say that when the Gulf War happened, was it the Gulf War? Yeah. They pollution in the air from all the stuff que se tiró basically was still in the air. And I was really, really uh, allergic. And like allergic, like from day, as soon as I stepped into the country, like just stuff I've never experienced before. And I kept getting outbreaks. And I knew it was the place itself because the first summer I came back to New York, I cleared completely up. And then when I went back to Kuwait, like I went right back into whatever was going on with my skin. And they would tell me, yeah, you have allergies, but they could never tell me what the allergy was from.
Oh, wow. I
Oh,
wonder
I
if it was,
totally agree.
who's totally
I've had
agreeing?
no. I've had the same situation happen. My hair and my skin in different places does act differently to the water. So I totally understand your dilemma with that. It
Yeah,
happens to me.
it was definitely absolutely horrible, but it was worth it. It was worth the experience. I got to travel just about to most countries actually in the Middle East, those that are travelable. And I love the area, and it's just like so well. It's such a great hub for traveling. Like I could literally say, like I want to go to Europe this weekend and take an overnight flight and be in Europe for 3-4 days just because I'm super cheap. 4 hours to get into Africa as well. Asia was like also a hop, like that was the longer route, and that was like 6 hours away. So it was just like amazing because it's so central, and then you just have access to the entire other side of the world.
Yeah.
Um, and there's so much to see. You know, people think it's just desert and um, and people cover up, and there's not much, and that's not the reality at all. Like there's beautiful beaches, beautiful sights. Um, and they really have fancy stuff that you're like, wow, like you go into their houses and they have elevators and it's like really like a little baby house. And let me tell you, like the most simplest house would be like they have many mansions and they will usually be, so for example, it would be a huge house and then it would be 3 floors maybe, and then the families will be each family they share, and then each family on one floor. But oh my God, their houses. I was just like, yeah, like be living in Kuwait, nothing impresses me. Like fancy cars don't impress me because you see how like when like let's say a Ferrari goes by, everybody's like breaking their neck, like oh a Ferrari, Like but out there that's the norm. Like it's like Ferrari here, Ferrari there, Ferrari. Like it's like so it just becomes so normal to see these fancy things that to me it's just like yeah. So what? Like
Nothing impresses you anymore.
It's a nice house, you know.
Right, but it's not like wow.
Yeah. At first, obviously, you go through that whole process of like, wow, you know, and but then when it becomes the norm, it's just like, okay, that's enough. Enough wowing. Like, there's nothing to wow anymore.
And if I were to go there to visit, where would you recommend I go?
Kuwait.
Yeah, where should I go in Kuwait if I go to visit?
I had a couple people visit me, and I always recommend that only 2 to 3 days. You don't need more than that. Again, it's this big, the whole country. And so what I would recommend is the Kuwaiti Towers, you know, that's their main attraction. The mall, you know, it's a Galleria Mall? I forgot the name of it. The Avenues, which is like the fanciest mall. Like, I was impressed when I went there the first time. And the definitely the camel farms. They have camel farms out there. Maybe go out to the where the chalet areas, where the beaches are, and that's it. And just eat. Like, just go to restaurants. You know, there's tons of those. But yeah, the main attractions will be the mall, you know, the farm, and the Kuwaiti Towers. And
So at the airport, can you get alcohol, or it's just like not even at the airport? You cannot get alcohol. Not even? Because I know when I went to Egypt, they said you could get up to 2 bottles at the airport and bring it to your house. And in Dubai, the same thing, but they're not even at the airport. What about in your luggage?
The thing about people will sneak it in, you know, like once I traveled with a friend who like literally put like a whole like bottle like down her pants, right? So you can get lucky most of the time with Americans. They don't mess with us. You know, in Kuwait, they have this really high value for Americans. Like, you almost feel special. And it was very different from living in Colombia, right? Because in Colombia, the thing with Kuwait is that their system of who's wealthy and who's not is completely based on money. It's not based on what you look like, right? If you're dark. So to them, everyone that comes from America is American, period. No questions asked. If you come from the United States, you're American. But then in Colombia, it was completely different because they're like, wait, but you look like us. You know, like you. So in Colombia, you have your social status based on money and on your looks, whereas in Kuwait, it was just about the money. So, but to them, because you are American and they're trying to adopt so much of the American culture, it's extremely Americanized. You just get, you know, this level of respect, and they really don't mess with you. So it was easy to sneak in stuff. I never did it because you either lucky or not, and depending on who stopped you, you could either get locked up or you wouldn't. So they lock you up. Oh yeah, they lock you up. Like, they do not play with this stuff over there. But it's funny. You can still you could actually the military people had they had access to alcohol, and I think they would either get it shipped or the people they were wastas. You know wasta? Did you learn about wastas when you were in the Middle East? So wasta is your hookup. If you have a wasta, you can basically get away with murder, period. Like, literally, right? So they would get wastas, and the wastas would like give them access to real bottles. But like a regular size, like let's say Grey Goose, went for like $300.
No.
Yeah.
It's worse than the club.
Yeah. And
I was gonna say, yeah, that's like some club prices.
That's definitely. I was like, I'll chill with you and drink yours, you know, but I'm good.
Right. I'll just be sober.
Yeah, but usually people who got it were people who had the money and then didn't care about, you know, where I was going or who had it. The only thing that were really, like this is mine was Hennessy, because Hennessy was really hard to get your hands on.
Wow.
But other than that, it wasn't so bad.
So it was easier to get like a $20 flight to go somewhere else and drink there than to actually risk it and bring something in.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. But actually, something I wanted to touch on, because this was it's pretty so a perspective that I gained there that has become a big part of my way of thinking now is the whole concept of slavery, right? Because we think of slavery, when we think of slavery, we think about the past and the Africans and what Columbus did and all of this stuff. But for example, excuse me, Filipinos, there's a ton of Filipinos over there, right? And they're mostly house workers. They work the malls. And let me step back a little bit. So basically, the Kuwaiti society is run by expats. They don't work their regular jobs. They are, maybe you'll find a teacher here and there, but they're the ones who work like the government jobs, the banks, everything else. Outside of that, it's like the Americans teaching in their schools, or the malls is filled with Filipinos, and then their house servants are mostly Filipinos. But they had a struggle with flights, because what happened, it was really sad to see how they brought them in, and basically how they were treated in the society of the Kuwaitis. For example, when I came in, there was a teacher, amazing. Like, I didn't even get to hang out with him one time, but like, I had just gotten there. It was about to be my birthday. I still had no friends. I made no connections whatsoever. And I just posted on this group of new teachers. I'm like, hey, my birthday's coming up. I would love to like have a dinner or something. Like, I need something right now. And this guy, I like that morning, I was going to work the day of my birthday, and there was a package on my door. And he actually like gave me a poster with a nice card welcoming me and like whatever. Like this beautiful soul that I instantly connected to, and he was Filipino. And he ended up having to leave the school within 2 months because the students didn't respect him as an educator just because he was Filipino.
No
So it's like that kind of like, if you're from there, like you have no value, you get no respect. So they have very limited freedom, right? So I would call them really like modern day slavery. They would do things like take their passports, so like they can only have access to travel with them, and they just totally ran them. Filipinos who ended up with really good families that value them would be really lucky, pretty much. And then it was crazy because, for example, I was teaching kindergartners, and then you have these Filipinos that the nannies that they don't, and there were some Indians too, but they work mostly at the school. But the nannies spoke no English, like they very little English, but then they spoke no Arabic, and they're like completely taking care of the child. Like you would go to the mall, and this is the regular vision would be to see the Kuwaiti people walking ahead, and then the nannies in the back with the kids. And you knew there were nannies because they have to wear their uniforms, their nanny uniform at all times. Like they can't even wear regularly. So it was just like very sheltered, very limited, very lack of freedom, right? So that was pretty interesting.
Wow.
I forgot what the question was and where I was going with it, but
I forgot too.
Yeah, let me see what else I can share.
Do you guys have any questions? Orlando, Flavia, Jenny, Mimi? Anything you want to know about living in the Middle East?
Or about visiting.
Or about visiting, of course.
I would totally recommend Oman. It's Jordan is was my top. And so I went to Oman, and now they're like fighting for top place. Um, I loved Palestine. Uh, Bahrain is like Bahrain is a trip in itself. Like they have this brunch, like the American brunch that you go and get trashed in Bahrain, and it's like the popular thing to do when you go there. And then there's this guy that performs. He performs in his entire Dasha gear, and he does karaoke. So like it's like big entertainment out there because you don't see men in their Dashas dressed and being in a party mode. You know what I mean? But dating, I can talk about dating. You know why they wear dish dashas?
Yes.
I'm gonna tell you why they wear dish dashas. Yo estoy, oh, give me a second. Give me a second, sorry. Mamá, yo estoy en la computadora. Tenga. Pero se tiene, ¿me tengo que ir o se va usted? Okay.
Say hi, mommy.
My grandma.
Oh, is your
Diga,
grandma?
mamá. Hello. The phone. What was I going to talk about?
Dating.
Oh, the reason, so I love to say this, that the reason they wear dish dasha, so for those of you who don't know, the dish dasha is like the white dress they wear, and it's all white mostly with a white thing. And it's because they go ghost.
What do you mean?
They disappear in your ass. So I dated a Kuwaiti. I was really into him. And he was like totally digging me. We were spending all the time together. And, you know, he was really there. I came home. It was like close to the summer. We were talking every single day for hours, almost all day on the phone. Yeah, and one day he just stopped calling me. And then he stopped picking up my phone calls. And then he just disappeared, like literally disappeared. And I was like, so he had some of my stuff because he dropped me off in the airport and he had stuff that like I really loved. I'm like, dude, can you at least give me my stuff? And then that's when he finally responded, months later, mind you. And he's like, oh, I moved out of Kuwait, right? So at that time, I think I still had him on Snapchat or something, and he happened to post the city he was in, and I Googled the city, and it was in Kuwait. And I was like,
Oh.
so he was like, oh, you know, but he, you know, he kept playing along with the, I know I'm no longer in the country. I was like, just give me my stuff. That's all I want. And he said, okay, I'm gonna send my cousin to send it to you. And they just left it. He just left it at the lobby of my building. And then that's it. I never heard from him again. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was to him. It was just a game. It was never serious. And they tend to do that a lot. Like I have a friend that, so I don't know if you know, they are, you know, their law allows them to have 4 wives, up to 4 wives. You know, a lot of them, they get with Americans, but because they know that Americans are not into that, they kind of like just lie to them. So I had a friend, a coworker, she warned me before I dated this one. She's like, do not date them. They're like, they will take advantage of you. And I'm like, what do you mean? So this girl dated this guy for 1.5 years. And they even got engaged and everything, only to find out that he was already married with a whole family.
No.
So they do things like that where they play the crap out of us, out of us Americans and stuff. But they're like lovely men. Like they are so service oriented, so like.
So is it dating an American like a trophy kind of thing? Like, oh, let me do this to see if I can reach and like get her, and then after that, like drop you like flies kind of thing.
Pretty much. That's what it feels like, and it's also a lot of them just do. I think that a lot of them just do it with the like just kind of like to pass time. It's never, even though they lead you to be serious, they never are because like their family wouldn't accept it, you know, and
Mm.
things like that. So it's kind of like living in a fantasy where the woman doesn't know that it's all a fantasy, and then they end up heartbroken. So that can either happen or you can get really lucky. And but
Be
for
part
the
of the other three wives.
I mean, I'm
But
like,
it's
hey,
better to be prepared and
I want
know.
to share of your money. I think I could share you. You know what I mean? Because, like,
I could just be
well,
the
you know
wife that
what's
takes
cool
the
about
money and does
being
nothing
married?
else.
That what?
You could just be the wife that takes the money and does nothing else.
Pretty much. No, but you know what's the cool thing about being married to them? That by law, their whatever's theirs, like their money and all, like is yours too. But your stuff as a woman is yours. So they don't ever have to find out how much you have, how much money you have, or whatever. Like you can hide anything you don't want them to know in terms of like your belongings and your financial stability, and just take their stuff.
No way.
I was like, I would do it. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. I will do it too. I mean, I'm already married. Can women have two husbands there?
No,
No.
sorry. Mm-mm.
I missed my chance.
But in terms of the jobs, okay, in terms of working abroad in general, I do want to bring up that they do have amazing benefits that even if you say like, oh, I want to do it for just 1 year or 2 years, and it's something that's just a temporary option, it's completely worth it because most of them pay your housing, like uh, your insurance is amazing. I actually had to have surgery in Kuwait, and I was at a hospital that felt like a hotel. And I was like, dude, like I actually can live here. This is a cool place. And you just have everything that's to us is a big expense here in the States. You get it for free. And honestly, like all my money went to for my financial goals and for traveling.
Mhm.
That's it. They
And living abroad too, you don't have to pay US taxes either.
You don't have to pay taxes. You pay taxes if you get paid over $103,000. You don't get tax exempt, but then you're tax exempt. So basically, you're making all your money. It's completely yours. All you have to do is feed yourself and make yourself at home, however it is, and do whatever you want with your money. And I think it's just a great it's a great opportunity to kind of like ground yourself and put yourself. So, for example, when I left here, I was like $40,000 in debt, and in those 3 years, I got rid of that debt. You know, so it's just little things like that that I think, well, if I was in the States, I would still have probably those $40,000 in debt because you're mostly paying what? Mostly interest, and you're paying like a really small fraction of what you owe, a debt that just never goes away. And you know, you get these opportunities that people really don't think about, especially in terms of getting financial freedom and getting yourself, you know, where you want to get in life. Because at the end of the day, yeah, money doesn't run the show, but we need it to run our show.
Mhm.
So it's just a good option, I think.
That is awesome. And the school that you were working in, is that an international school or it was like an authentic school but you were teaching? What were you teaching?
So I was teaching American schools, hire American teachers to teach in English. So the school that I was in, students, I was kindergarten, but they had pre pre-K and then pre-K. So they were learning English 2 years before I was teaching them. So by the time
Wow.
they're 5 and in kindergarten, they can communicate in English. So the way that most international schools run is that they teach the core curriculum in English, and then they'll get like a period of their language throughout the school day. And yeah, most schools are like that actually.
Mm-hmm.
Like for my laptop time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but it was really cool. And just the work here in the States, special teaching is just so stressful and so well, you should know, Vanessa, it's so time consuming, and it really sucks the life out of you. And over there, like, they put everything in a platter. Like, you don't even have to worry about all the lesson planning and all of that, because everything has been filed, and they just like, here's everything you need. Like, so all you have to do is just put your spin to it as a teacher. You don't have to reinvent any wheel. The lesson plans are already there for you. People are willing to just give you their stuff. And like, I'm telling you, it was the only teaching job being abroad. Well, I only worked 2 years, but it was the only teaching job that I could leave at work. Meaning, if I was at work, I was at work. Once I was out of work, that's it.
We're out of work.
I was out
Wow.
of work.
That sounds like heaven.
It was heaven, and it's generally like that in the international community. Absolutely. In the expat teaching world, which makes a whole world of difference. That's why I was like, when people were trying to put me in the classroom when I was back, I was like, I am not going back into that when I just experienced what like the heaven that I experienced. I'm not trying to get back into that.
So Orlando is asking, how far away did you live from the U.S. Embassy?
The U.S. Embassy? Let me see. The U.S. Embassy was like maybe like 20 minutes away from me.
20?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the embassy a few times. They used to have like the hottest parties. But the thing with the embassy is that they're very you had to have someone that lived in there to sign you in. So you had to be where are you guys?
We're here.
Yeah, so it was nice to like have connections to get in there or whatever, but it wasn't easy to get those but
so they go to the American schools. Are those the kids of the children of the people in the embassy, or are those the children like from
they were
who want to learn English?
They were Kuwaiti. Yeah. Certain schools, like for example in Colombia, I taught a lot of kids from the embassy.
Okay.
Like it was more of a mix. But in Kuwait, it was like just the Kuwaiti for the most part. The only Americans that you would see were the children of the staff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they would, it's like $30,000 on average for them to pay for. And international schools in general, like these parents are paying like $30,000 a year per student.
Mm-hmm. What's the discount if you're staff?
I think for Americans was free, and then for the Arabs, I think it was like 50%. The locals, okay. Yeah, we did. That's something I also found unfair. It was so unbalanced how they distributed the benefits and the pay when we're all doing.
But as an American, if you have children. But as an American, if you had children, then you could literally move there with your whole family, have your children attend a $30,000 school while you're teaching and not paying U.S. taxes, and it's like a dream for a family. Especially if you have two adults and both are working at the school. Whew.
And there are a lot of people that do that, it's interesting to see the people. That's actually was one of my favorite things, just being able to connect with people that were in such different times in their life journey, retired, someone singles, young, people with families that moved their whole families, but we were all connected by the same mindset and the same desires, right? So, you could easily find, a person with a whole family and And then you can find someone who's just like starting to live life and enjoy it and whatever, and be able to connect with everyone. That was pretty dope. And yeah, a lot of people do that. And they go to another school and they take their whole family, and it's a lifestyle. A lifestyle that people take by choice, and some people do it. Like I met the girl actually that I got the job through. She's from New York. Now she from Kuwait. She was like in Korea, South Korea. Then she ended up in Kuwait. She was in Kuwait for a while. Now she's in the Philippines. And now she's like trying to go to Africa. And she's like, I am never going back to New York. For what?
Yeah.
Like, she has traveled like close to 100 countries, just doing her, and she loves it. And a lot of people Like I honestly, I would have, if teaching was as fulfilling for me as I would like it to be, I would have just stayed to meet someone there, like people with similar mindsets. It's actually not that. A lot of people are single, but a lot of people do find partners because you're just so. It's not like me coming here and saying like meeting someone in New York and saying, hey, like I want to live this travel lifestyle, right? And they're like, where we going? How you gonna travel? You know what I mean? So it's like it's easier just to meet people who are like-minded and will want the same thing.
Yeah. Wow. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming. Unless anybody else has more questions.
Just fairly quickly, what were the school lunches like?
School lunch, they don't have school lunches. They bring their own food.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And yeah, everybody brings their own food, the staff, the kids, and we just have like snacks, snack time. And the same thing was for the older kids. I don't know if they actually had a cafeteria or whatnot. We did snack in the classroom, and I was a whole completely like separate building. But yeah, everybody brings their own food. In Colombia, however, it was pretty interesting because they had like this big chef that cooked at the school, and we would get like restaurant meals daily if they decided to pay for it, right? So I think it depends on the culture too, and how they value food and how they see it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All of this is so interesting.
So interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Does anyone have any other questions?
I'm asking in the chat. Can you tell us a little bit more about Colombia, like your experience living in Colombia?
So what's funny is I expected to have like a much easier transition into Colombia coming from Kuwait, right? Coming from the Middle East and it being a whole different world. But it was actually more difficult to adapt. And again, I think it has to do with coming back into, where you fit in your social status. The kids that I taught fourth grade in Colombia, and they were like the wealthiest of the wealthiest in all of Colombia. It was in Bogota, with some embassy kids, some American kids. But what was interesting about it was that because Kuwait doesn't really have that separation of like of wealth, like to them, like a Filipino is not at their status, but an American is, right? So they're not aware of their privilege. Whereas in Colombia, the kids are aware of their privilege. And so the interactions are more around this privilege and I don't know, like if any of you have interacted with Colombians or whatever, but from my previous experience before I went, like I had the perspective que los colombianos son presumidos, right? And technically their culture is like that. What do you mean no operation of classes?
No separation of classes, she said.
Yeah, no separation of classes in Kuwait, but that was the case in Colombia. So it didn't feel as fulfilling because I felt that I was in a more I came back to the oppression culture, right? Where your status says what and people treat you differently because of your background. Like again, just because I'm Latina and not a Caucasian, like they didn't really view me as an American teacher. Uh, and so that's something that I struggled with, and it blocked making connections with the parents and the students and even just like my life and where I come from, right? Like those are things they take into consideration, whereas in Kuwait they didn't care about that stuff. To them it was like, wow, you made it. Uh, but it was definitely not the same in Colombia. And I didn't connect socially in Colombia because I didn't connect with my co-workers who were mostly Caucasian, and I don't know what it is, but like they're really cliquish, man. Just in general, like it feels like automatic clicks, and as soon as we came into the school as new employees, then clicks formed, and somehow I didn't make it into any of those clicks. And then so I was from the workplace perspective, I was really on my own. And then like, all right, I'm in a Latino culture, I'm Latina, like whatever, I'll make some local friends. But then the local people didn't view me as one of them either, because the local people viewed me as American, right? Like as a privileged American. So I was not fitting in with the actual American society, and I was not fitting in with the local society. So I spent let's just say it was a very growing period for me, because I had to figure out, okay, who I am when I'm alone, what do I do? Thank you, Orlando. Thank you, Orlando. Yeah, but yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience all the way from the Middle East to Colombia. And we're looking forward to learning more about your story as we follow you on your Instagram and as we follow you on Facebook as well. Uh, it was amazing hearing that aspect of the world, because I've visited many times, but it's a different thing to visit than to actually live there.
Absolutely.
And this was super interesting. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for doing this. I'm actually enjoying it a lot. So,
right? Yesterday we have the story with Angela and Delilah about Thailand. The day before we had the story with about Philippines. And then we had the story about me going to Jordan. So every day is a different topic. Tomorrow we're gonna have Celine. She's gonna talk about her greater travel accomplishment. So and it's gonna be at 5 EST, 2 PST. So 5 o'clock in New York.
5 p.m. tomorrow.
Okay. And 2 o'clock in California. So I hope you can join us tomorrow here again soon. Thank you.
Bye bye. Take care.
Bye bye.